what to learn, and what to speak, and when. To be in Berlin and to only live a block away, to only live 100 meters away, or only to live one floor away, or only to live and separated only by a wall. And whether you be a gypsy, or whether you be Turkish, or whether you come from the south of Germany or you come from the north, or whether you are a Russian or whether you are from the Africa's nations, Arabic, or whether you come from America to live in Berlin. And the difference of a wall, and the difference of a nation, and the difference of the first 10 years, what a difference that has made in everyone's life, those first 10 years of life. And in those first 10 years, our little brain, little tiny, precious, soft little brain, imprinted like footprints in the snow from such an early age. And these imprints will always be those imprints, and they will never melt away like the snow melts away in Berlin. And like history, dust settles. And for every year, there's a new layer, you could say, of almost brain matter. For every year, there's another layer of archaeology to study the past year. And after 7 layers, after 7 years, we have 7 layers to contend with inside. And yet, in those first 10 years, it has really determined the mark of our own life, how we are going to be, and who we are going to be, and how we are going to be, and whether that is to eat, to drink, to sleep, and what friends, and what colors we like, and what direction we decide to walk. How easy it is to be German and understand the German business, the German mind, the German newspaper. How much easier it is to get along with other Germans. In just 10 years of a human being's life, when a foreigner comes into this particular land of yours, a very fortunate country it is, how that Turkish, how that foreigner, even the eyes will speak and say, you are 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, 100,000 miles away from me, and yet you are standing in front of me. It is not the language that separates. It is the footprints and how the footprints were embedded in that very tender little brain. And whether the eyes of a mother of Muslim, or whether of just some village that just loves the trees and the birds in some jungle, or whether it comes from the land of snow and Eskimo and there's nothing but white and very little to say, or it comes from the equator where there's nothing but sun and warmth, and the skin is darkened after so many generations, darkened to a nice, shiny, pure darkness black, or to a very tan brown. And how these first 10 years determine so much in everybody's life in this world. It is the mother and the father. It is their habits. It is their philosophy. but it's not even theirs. And your philosophy is not even yours either. And your wants and your desires is not even made up by you. For it is the accumulation of many, many generations. Thousands and thousands of generations. For each footprint, from one generation to the next, is slowly embedded, sinking deeper and deeper down into that very small, tender, soft little brain. And it does make a difference how you touch your friend, how you shake the hand, whether that the shake and the touch is of pure anger or of a love and a good friendship. It does make a difference how a person touches your shoulder or how a person may hit you. And as it is for these very tender footprints of all the little ones, of all the nations, that has affected their lives so much. And after so many generations, that little child, whether it be of German or gypsy, it is a gypsy imprint, a gypsy footprint. It is a German footprint. It is a German imprint. And it's just not the size of the shoe, but how the footprint is embedded into that tiny little brain. When those very tender little eyes are looking into the mother's eyes or into the nurse's eyes or into the father's eyes. And if there is no reception, if there is no party to welcome the little one from a world of 9, not just 9 months, but actually 90 years, that's what it is to the little one inside the womb. And to come out being forced, literally forced out into a world, into another womb, actually. It's just that their womb is much, much bigger. And hoping that in this other life that I get to live not just 9 months, but maybe 90 years. And when the child sees that there's no reception, and all there is just an empty wall with very harsh lights, no one to touch, and somehow there's a separation, somehow there's no contact, there is no bonding to be made, for somehow isolation has begun. And it is the isolation itself that is the footprint. And that footprint will forever go into the nervous system to be cataloged, to be filed into that little child's mind. And in time, the little German child who was 10 years old, thinking that it is your wish, it is this what you want, and it is not. It is the result of many generations of their wishes and their wants, added upon wishes and wants. And that's what creates the difference of your faces. It is just not the DNA or the proteins that are the aftermath of the DNA. It is an intent. It is the will of the Spirit that has carved your faces to be different from the Arabics and from the Spanish. It is the intent of a whole nation, you could say the spirit of a whole nation, and how to be and how to think. That is literally carved the way you built your homes, the way you understand the code, the way you build your automobiles, and the way you conduct yourself on the streets. It's just not the spirit of you that has made you who you are. It is the spirit of all the past generations, of the Germanics and the Gauls and the Visigoths, tens and thousands of years ago. For you see, they had wishes too and wants for their children, just like your parents did, and just like you, parents, with your children. For a wish is a very powerful factor in the human being. A want does not go really too far. A want can only go as far as you can throw it, like a spear. And sometimes a want can be manufactured and put into a bullet and released from the barrel. And you may project that wish much further than that want. But yet, it was only propelled by gunpowder. And yet, it's really the wishes, the very fine, subtle wishes of not just the Germans, not just the gypsies, but of all little boys and little girls throughout the whole world, and grandmothers and grandfathers and uncles and aunts, cousins and brothers and sisters, that eventually really shapes the DNA and all the proteins of the aftermath. And yet all human beings, whether it be a sumo wrestler of Japan or a ballet dancer in Russia or a German engineer working for BMW, there's very, very little differences in the DNA and in the proteins. Something like 35,000, only 35,000 a human being has. The mustard seed has 20,000 DNAs. Human being, 35. Even a mouse has something like in the order of 15,000. And how it speaks to a human being, how we're very close, not just to the animal kingdom, but to the plant kingdom. Just a few more DNAs, a little, you could say, complex proteins that operate just a little more sophisticated. And yet somehow they all have brains just like us. And somehow they have a nervous system and blood system very much like us. And yet there is a vast difference. For we have learned that human beings can be animal quite easily. Just start a war and watch the animal come out. And yet we can be carvers of stone, carvers of beauty. And yet we can raise a family and teach our children well. We have found our world extremely complex. We have found that there are so many issues and more new issues being born every day. And yet what determines a nation and determines the movement of the world, it is just not the vote when you vote in your politicians. It is just not being hired for a good job. It is really the tenor. It is really the frequency. It is really how you play your own heart and play your own mind. The strings of a violin, the strings of a guitar, the keys of a piano. how you play yourself. And not just today, but how you have played yourself. What to learn. And there's so much to learn. Is it really you who really know about the stars? Is it really you who knows about geometry? Is it really you that has the understanding of the biology? Is it really you that knows all this? And even though we read it from a book, and then we think we know it, and it's really not us that really knows it. It is the person who invented it who really knows it. And everybody else, it's passed on. You could almost call it hearsay. And yet, without the book, and yet without radio and TV, and yet without newspapers and magazines, the world would not be too kind. And yet, the complex issues, for most of us here, except for the little one there, those first 10 years, we don't even think about it. We're not even concerned. Now our major concern is not the footprints, not the imprints, but our bills, our wants, our likes, our desires, our wishes, our health, those. And sometimes it's somewhat of a spiritual nature, hoping that this is the path that I'm on, hoping that it is my path and the right path. And somehow there is a phenomenon of a human being, the phenomenon of the self, that no matter who you are, and your flag is Muslim, you have to be right because that is the flag you stand under. And if your flag is Italian, that is the right flag, for that is the flag you are standing under. And if your flag is German, if you standing under it, that has to be right. And if your flag is of Indian from India, that has to be correct. Somehow we are all caught underneath our own flag. We did not vote to come into this country. We did not vote to come into this existence. And yet somehow, very quite remarkably, we have found ourselves born in some nation under some flag. We did not choose the parents and say, I want you and I want you. Somehow, under some great mystery, we have found ourselves with a particular young man and young woman that somehow gave us enough food and gave us the clothes and somehow pointed a direction towards school and guided us there just long enough so we could leave home and somehow miraculously do it ourselves. "60 years ago, the continent of Europe was so different. And just in 60 years, we have found ourselves with such technology. The movement of everyone's life is so busy. Airplanes that fly quicker. How wonderful it is to travel. German passports, crossing one country to the next. And yet somehow we don't even have to leave home. Just turn on the television and watch the good documentaries of all the countries in the world. And yet we can learn so much just by sitting and reading and watching in our favorite chair in our living room. And not just there, but also in our bed with a nice light to reflect the ink off the paper. And yet one still asks, what is it that I can learn? What is it that I need? Why is it that I feel this big hole in my heart? Why is it that I still feel this emptiness? And why is it that I'm still plagued with confusion and doubt? And why is it that I'm still plagued with too much naivety? Was it that I missed too much school? Was it because I didn't pay attention? Was it because I did not say my prayers? Was it because I did a bad thing? I speak to you in a business suit. I speak to you with a business tie. I speak to you as a Westerner to let you know you don't need to belong to any club. You don't need to join any organization. You don't need to change your philosophies. That actually to understand the Spirit, to understand why you were born, it is you that has the best chance of all. You see, whether it be French or German, Russian or American, people basically have not understood the print. People basically have not understood ink. People have basically not understood really what the word or what the given word is. For there's too much ink being spread around. And one needs such great discretion to decide what is a good book and what is not. For most people have really lost good discretion and just relying on their own self. And yet the logic that was taught to you in the German schools is far, far better than most countries any place else in this world. For the German mind is very good, very steady. For the working class, the business class is done well. And yet you can see and understand when you go to a third world country what happens when there aren't good teachers, when there aren't good books, when the parents themselves don't have that education like most parents in the Western world. And yet the wise children of the Western world, not only those who have traveled to other countries, but they begin to see that there's something more than just having a good mind. But most important, a good heart. Some countries nourish the heart instead of the mind. Some countries nourish the mind and no heart. Some countries start to nourish both. And yet still everyone stands under their own flag. And then somehow, separated by a wall, separated by 100 meters, separated by a block, The Turkish and the German still separated, not understanding each other really. And yet, whether you're Turkish or German, both find their lives very complex and very, very busy from morning to night. Not really much time to learn another language. Not really much time to learn of your neighbors. When the stomach gets hungry, when the wants and the desires become overwhelming, too many things in the store to want, not enough money, and sometimes too much. You, yourself, sitting in the chair, that's the best chance you got, is that you have yourself. A book can help. Another human being can help. A picture can help. A good act, a good experience can help, but that's all I can do is help. For you are the best chance you got. Too many human beings are brainwashed into having guilt, not only about their families, but about themselves. Too many people are laden down with so much guilt about their country, or about what happens in the world, or about human beings throughout the world. For when a human being does something wrong, a strange phenomenon takes place. Especially when one witnesses a human being and it is a picture on a newspaper or moving pictures on the television. That is a human being creating the act. And somehow the guilt comes in very quietly, very slowly. Those protons emanating out of the TV, that reflected light bouncing off that ink off the newspaper and diving into your very sensitive eyes, diving deep into your optical nerves, running down into your brain matter, creating more footprints. And with so much war going on in so many nations today still, in the year 2001, it's understandable why so many human beings don't feel so good about themselves. To understand what is above, to connect yourself to what is above, it is not necessary to believe in yourself, but to start to feel your inner self. And you cannot do this through speech, for it is done very, very quietly in your quiet moments. Your wife may be asleep, your husband may be in the other room reading. You may be home alone, or you may be on the subway all alone in a boxcar. It is through your act alone you could say, is a sense of forgiveness. It's really a sense of a maturity of mind, of relaxing those footprints in that very tender brain that we all still have. For you see, a human being has the power to have a cold heart, to have cold eyes, or to have a warm heart and have warm eyes. Somewhat like turning on a light switch. Somehow like pressing the gas pedal in your car. And it's not saying, I want to do this or want to do that, for that never works. But there actually is another language inside. It is a very quiet, and yet it's a very loud language inside that most people have literally lost, literally given up. And I'm sure almost everyone here in this room have touched it. You may have touched it for a moment or two, and for some it may have lasted a day or two, and for some maybe a year or two. For what one seeks is not to your left and not to your right. For one finds it in one's heart. A heart that is very quiet and yet very loud. It would be good to buy a stethoscope. A stethoscope that what the doctors and the nurses use to hear your heart. And use the stethoscope when you find yourself in these quiet moments to hear your own heartbeat changed by an impulse of your emotional body, changed by an impulse of your mental mind, changed by what pictures you look at, changed by what you feel. Too many Westerners are too busy. We get so stressed out. A lot of cars, a lot of carbon monoxide. And somehow the bills never stop coming. We all have come to terms that life somehow goes up and down. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we have figured it out and sometimes we realize we don't know what we're doing. But the one thing that most people forget until a fever comes around, knocks them off their feet, forces them in bed to feel, not just the illness, but to feel their body. And let the stethoscope help you. So you become familiar with each heartbeat. And to think about it, contemplate it. For you see, you are more than just a thinking creature. You are a creature determined. You are a creature determined by a heartbeat. In essence, a breath away. As all generations have come, this generation will also go too. and another generation will take our place. The heartbeat literally passed on like a baton. The heartbeat passed on from that young man and that young woman and that one faithful night, making love or making lust and bringing another child into this world. And whether you were conceived of lust or love, that is your fate. But yet, whether it is lust or love that you were conceived, the heartbeat is still the same. You see, to understand the Spirit, it's really quite simple. Is that most make it so complex, make it so difficult. Most you have to suffer. Most you have to cry. Most you have to hate. Most you have to love. And you don't have to do any of those. For you see, you were already born. It's just that in essence you could say, etched to be German, etched to be Arabic, etched to be Gypsy, etched to be American, etched to be American Indian. But you see, what is above is not German and it's not Indian. What is above is not French or Swiss. Then what language are you going to use? What eyes are you going to use? No country can eat, sleep, dream, be born, or die for you. Only you can do that. No one can smile for you but you. No one can even cough for you but you. And every time you put on your shoes, no one else can put their feet in those shoes but you. Or there's something being very, very, you could say, independently dependent. It is my life, it is my body, they're my eyes, it is my nose that is pointed into that direction. And yet we depend on the garbage people, depend on the engineers to keep our electricity and our waters going through our kitchens. We depend on so many people with fuel. We depend on the farmers. We depend on the oxygen above to keep our breath and to keep that heart pumping. And yet, very magically but quietly, it is still my life. leave work. 5 o'clock comes around, buy a newspaper, and look to see in the entertainment section, what can I do tonight to be entertained? To fulfill another night, to dazzle my eyes, to dazzle my feelings, to somehow give me a high. What can I do to entertain myself? You see, life is not entertainment. We have been bred to be entertained in most societies in this world. And somehow, no matter where you go, everything is entertainment. But when all of a sudden we are down and life doesn't work, somehow even entertainment does not work. To learn of your own heart, to learn the language that is really ever present, but somehow thousands of miles away from the speaker, from that mind, from that person. Think about your life. And not be entertained. What would life be for you? There is a word, it is actually a disease that has penetrated practically every nation in this world. And the disease hits a child like a virus that spreads very rapidly around the world. And that is a word called boredom. For you see, this you can use your good German mind for. So you see, boredom does not exist. Boredom. Boring. It does not exist at all. It's impossible for it to exist. Impossible. But because we have at least 30,000 DNA and many millions of proteins, somehow we have the power to create not just a virus, but pass on a virus to our kids. Because there's really the entertainment has somehow penetrated the minds a little too much. You see, life is miraculous. No matter where you are, where you go, no matter what you're doing, it is miraculous. And when the mind is conditioned, and there are too many footprints are conditioned, not just with guilt and hurt and pain and disappointment. Somehow that very odd mix has created a disease called boredom. But all human beings basically are afflicted. And yet it does not exist. It's impossible. And yet it exists in the mind. Uproot this virus out of your mind and out of your life. For you see, there is nothing but life. And even those when there is war, and even those that are passing away, and even those that are sick, and even those that are laughing and having a wonderful time, and even those with good fortune, and even those, and even those. Life is miraculous. And yet what separates the mystic to a person that lives in their mind is really only the twilight of the day and night. And really what separates ones whose footprints are painful and ones whose footprints are nothing but hope it's just a song. It's a very gentle breeze. It's a warm heart. A quiet one, and yet very loud. And there is a word that all understands, but most have a different interpretation for this word. A word that has really become really too common that one can easily let it go in one year and then be jetted it out into your other year is not to pay much attention to it. And that is forgiveness, not just of humanity, but of yourself. For funny how a human being, they have more of a tendency to be wanted, to wish that that person forgives them, but how difficult it is for them to forgive others. Use also what your blood is for. It is just not to keep your heart thumping like a drum. It is just not to give fuel to your brain cells to keep firing like spark plugs in a car. For blood, it's really an evidence of the existence of the miraculousness of a human being. Blood. 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 Speak to yourself in your quiet moments, and yet let no one hear what you speak. Speak about your life story, speak about your experiences, good and bad, and let no one hear but the vibrations of your throat, the vibrations of your inner mind. For you see your toes, your bones, all your organs, they all need to hear. They all need to hear that you're okay with yourself and your whole life. And once you reach a certain stage, fear, inappropriate fear, will no longer come to you. And somehow you will find courage that you've never had before. And somehow you will find that the guest called wisdom will start to come knocking on your door. And somehow you'll find yourself a little more friendly and a little more forgiving. Your life is as precious and as valuable as anybody else's in this world. We're going to go into the fire dance now. And for the new people, I'm going to ask that you don't... Most new people get scared. And most new people, they start to put comments on what they think the fire dance is without even going in it. So be respectful of your money, because most people are not respectful of money, and most people don't know what money is all about. Money is to be respected. This is not entertainment. You did not come here, whether you thought you did. This is not entertainment. I'm not here to entertain you. I come, I have a job to do, and I'm going to do my job. And if you find yourself with fear, it is because your brain is not used to observing something that is not choreographed, that is not controlled, that is not entertainment. That is all. There's no evil spirits, there's no trancing out, there's no magic going on. There's just a dance that really speaks well. And you observe and use those eyes. When those eyes are understood what they're really for, they're just not to read, but they're also to look into the darkness of the night, to look at faces that are smiling, to look at strangers on the streets, to look at the very architects of walls and books, and the road ahead, and the keys in your pocket. To be a witness. For a witness cannot speak, a witness has to observe first and give it lots of time before you start making comments. So don't let fear chase you out the door. You may be scared, but come in anyway and dance. There's nothing you can do wrong in the dance. But you let me do my job. And your job is just to dance. But I recommend that most of you who are new to sit down first. If you want to dance in the beginning, great. But then after the first 15, 20 minutes, please sit down and watch. Do not close your eyes in this dance. Do not go into a trance. You hold your attention like you're going down your German autobahns 300 kilometers an hour. You stay sane, you stay present, and watch. You did not pay your money to watch other people. So don't look around the room. Don't waste your money. You watch the fire dancer. Watch, 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 watch. Let the dance teach you. The dance, as you will hear from the drumming and from the dancing, is going to be fast. And there's going to be a lot of fast movements. But if you let the witness really be a witness, you will see, especially once you are brought into the dance, that the dance is a very, very quiet and soft dance. Very quiet and soft. Very quiet and soft. Some of you will never come back. And if that is the case, then you have nothing to lose but to put your heart into it. You got nothing to lose. I'm going to ask that when I start to set up the altar, Westerners, we don't, I work too. We don't have much time, from 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And we got to go here, go there, I got to go to the grocery store, and got to go do this. And we're very busy creatures. So when it comes to preparation, we don't have much time to do anything. We all know what our lives are like. But watch the preparation on the altar, what it takes to get the fire dance prepared. Learn from it and watch so you can prepare your life. Watch, watch, watch. Yo, Nikititititi neayeni nyo. Nyo nikiti ha. Peace to your minds. Peace to your hearts. Peace. Niti. Let's dance. Hi. Hi. Hello. You know what would be good is to please come forward and you put the other chairs. Yeah. Yeah. Ha, ha, ha. Echo, 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 echo. Speaking, speaking, echo, echo, speaking, echo. That's all I can. Just got a vocabulary of 2 words. Echo, speaking, echo. Echo, speaking, speaking, echo. We're adjusting the all the tones. Echo, echo, echo. Speaking, 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 speaking. Echo, 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 echo. Speaking, speaking. Still, echo, echo. Better. Echo, echo, better, better. Echo, speaking, better, 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 better. Echo, better, much better. Thank you for the workshop. So when you go home, you can tell it'll be very profound experiences. What would you like to talk about? So what about some of your questions then? Yes. Can you speak up? The experience of separateness? Mm-hmm. the experience of separateness. Separateness in relationship to you and other people, or you and things, yeah, you and yourself, separateness. You know, long time ago, there was this teacher in school that was talking about space and time, and it had to do with a second level geometry. And he asked everyone to not just to look at him, but to sense the space and the distance between our eyes and him standing in front as a teacher in school. You know, and it took me such a long time, years and years to understand this. And that the sense of your mind becoming cognizant, developing an awareness of the space between you and every object. And when one considers this, one has to really consider, when one starts to contemplate space and time, or separateness, you have to understand what your education is and where and what part of the world you come from. Because the people in the Western world, when they started talking about separateness and distance and subject, object, objective, subjective. And if you were raised not in the Western fashion, Western education, and you were Indian, American Indian, and you were asked to consider the space, there isn't much difference. There is no, objective, subjective. There is no me, you over there. It's all within the same time and space. That there isn't this separateness. It is actually the education system that has literally, you could say, programmed, literally defined people to contemplate and think of the subject and object, of the self, and whatever is in front of you as separateness. And when people say, no, that's not yours, this is mine. No, this is your room, this is my room. No, that's not yours, this is mine. No, that's not your mountain. That belongs to someone else. No, this is not your shoes. They belong to your brother still. And it is literally, you could say, an intelligence redefining itself sometime in history where the objective, subjective started to create more separateness within the personal human being. By words and concept. And so literally it started to separate people, so they started to become more lonely, even though they started to have more definition of the self, more a defined self, more independent of every other object that exists on this planet. And whereas when it comes to being raised ever since you were so high as an American Indian, it's our mountain. They're our shoes. It's our trees. And we are of the same. We all breathe the same air. We all are all under the same sun. There is no object, subject. We're just human beings breathing all the same air. And so the education of the American Indian, in essence, there is no words for past or future. It just is. It just is. And so when there are no words, there are no clear Berlin walls that set perimeters, put up fences, put up a well-defined boundaries, whether it is a country or separated by a wall and a flat or separated by a street sign. So when the person inside has not created a separation of the external environment, that the external environment and the internal environment inside are of the same. So what you see a desert, you're the desert. You see a mountain, you're of the mountain. You see the sky, you're of the sky. And very oddly, in Buddhism, they have teachings that revert. Actually, they start to flip the Western thought, the Western education, and start you on a meditation process to contemplate and to look at the sky. So what is the external environment starts to come in, and you start to become this internal environment. And so therefore you're back down to what it was thousands of years ago. You are the sky. But it's so hard for the Western mind to let go of this independent thinking, because the intelligence is so sophisticated, it is so well defined, that it has literally, the philosophy is almost too strong to break. So no matter how you're going to look at the sky, it is subjective, objective. It is me versus it. I am not the sky, I am me. I am my name, I am my hurt, I am my dreams, I am my hope. It's not my mountain, it's not my city. But my shoes, my shirt, my name, and I will sue for my name to hang on to my name. And I will defend myself to defend my honor. So in essence, it is really the odd factor of education that has really created so much separateness. That's why so many human beings in the Western world in time they find out that there's a gap inside, that there's a big hole inside, there's something not filled. But we find these little niches in life that somehow there is no subject-object, but we do that when we're dancing, we're having a good time, or when we're drunk, or when we're really high, and somehow the Berlin Walls go away, they just disappear. Or when we're making love and it disappears, or when we're having a good time and it disappears. But then we go back into our typical ordinary existence. The Berlin Walls come up right and left, and then it's subject-object. But yet, very oddly, when one is really involved in making love, and one is really involved of holding hands, one is really involved in your passion, the Berlin Wall of subject-object somehow it's not there. And yet people keep seeking it. They keep seeking it. They keep seeking it. And inertly, you could say it's almost a compulsion to go back to it. Get back to those feelings, to get back to that space and time where there is no separation. So both bodies are one. And when you can turn two human beings into that both bodies become one, and whether it is your passion is of painting, or whether it is of drawing or inventing, or whether it is kissing or holding hands, or whether it is holding your child and feeling it, or whether it is taking a bath, or whether it is making love, whatever those time and spaces are where the Berlin Walls no longer exist. They only exist for so many minutes, actually, so many hours. And for some people, it's so many weeks. And for some people, it has accumulated those times into months out of your whole life. if you were to add up all these times, where time and space, there was no object subject, the Berlin Wall's gone, and add up the minutes, all these times where you were like one with it, versus all the minutes where you're not. What are you going to see? What's it going to look like? It won't be a pretty picture at all. At all. And then the factor of complacency comes into view, that the human being, after so many decades of existence, realizes this and sees this quietly in the inner mind, sees this. This is the way it is. And complacency takes over, covers it very well, very neatly, and say, this is the way it is. I'm going to have so many minutes or so many hours or so many days or so many weeks out of my whole life where there's no Berlin Wall to separate between me and a human being, or between me and my passion. And the rest, it's total separation. No wonder we have a hard time. No wonder we have a hard time. And then the conditioning itself of the Western world and how we are raised comes into view. Complacency and conditioning, especially constantly living in the Western world, you're stuck. Even if you go to a third world, pretty much. So it's a predicament. There's a predicament. There's a very, very big predicament going on here. Especially when you actually see the facts. You see, it's not the separation that's the problem. It really isn't. It's that people are not taught to really understand what the reality is of the facts. And most people don't pay any attention to it. They just get together and somehow bring down the Berlin Wall and become one, and it's going to go on for a few minutes, and the rest, the Berlin Wall comes up, and get on with your life. But your mind needs to be educated with this. Your mind really needs the facts of life. And if you can contemplate these moments where there was no Berlin Wall and add it up, really go throughout your whole life, people, and spend a year on this and add up those minutes. Be realistic. And then add up the minutes where the Berlin Walls are up. And look at it, and look at it, and look at it, and look at it, and contemplate it. Separation is really not the point. It's not the issue. It's not the problem. It's not giving your mind enough realistic data of what the given situation is, people, because we're dealing with time here. And yet there's time doesn't exist, actually. It really doesn't exist. But we're Westerners, so we're dealing with time. It's essential to us. It's important to us. It has become very important to the mind. Extremely important. You know that. You know what it's like if you go to a third world country and how the trains run? Just cross the channel to England. And how do the trains run there? In America, it's the same thing. It's terrible. Go to Switzerland, it's a little bit better than it is in Germany. But it matters. It makes a difference to be on time. That means time is important to us. It is because we are born and raised and become pretty efficient. You could say pretty savvy when it comes to what it is to be a Westerner. That means your mind up there knows. Either you respect it or you don't. And if you don't, you are in trouble. And that also comes when you start to bring in your emotional body. Because who wants to be separated? Everybody wants friends. Everybody wants to be liked and to have good friends. Everybody wants to be forgiven and have the ability to forgive. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be really touched. When you're angry, okay, not then. But when it goes away, yes. Everybody does. And when that emotional body you could say, ignorant, because the mind has not put it together, has not really looked at it from the mental body to the emotional body, what the facts are, what the reality is, on a scale, put all the various minutes, or whether it's accumulated to days or weeks, I don't know, whatever it is in your life, and then put on the other side, when we're living behind Berlin walls. But we've gotten used to it. We adapt. We all get by. We can still laugh and do our jobs and go up and down elevators, and we can write and still watch TV and do all that. We're all very efficient with it. It's no problem. See the space? It's always there. There's nothing you can do about it. It's always between you and me. The space between you, between your left eye and right eye. Space between your left ear and right ear. Space between your small little toe and your toe next to it. And there's space between your thoughts and space between your neurons. And there's even space between your hair. Get a mirror and take a look and see. So it's not the issue. And when a Westerner comes to terms with the reality of looking at this balance scale, and it's not a pretty picture. And for some people it's much worse. And yet they can survive and get by and still have a good life and do a good job. But what do people really yearn deep down inside that are really afraid to say and speak out? What they would wish. So for a Westerner to all of a sudden, or a German to develop harmful tendencies, it's not so easy. Because the Germans have developed in the mind in a very, very good, healthy way. And everything is perceived through this very healthy mind, and it's wonderful. But one wonders, how can you go to a nation, another nation, where they basically more operate it out of their emotional body, or they're more heartful, they're kinder. Maybe they're not so sophisticated as you with your thinking, but they're kinder. Maybe they don't keep the economy up, and maybe they don't keep the streets as clean, but maybe they're more heartful. or to really understand time and space, is to use all the time and space that you can find. And that means to be a really good German, to be a very smart and wise German. You realize how much space there is on this planet? For know the weaknesses and strength of your own country. And make sure that there isn't arrogance to keep you blind. There isn't naivety to keep the veils of illusion in front of you. That there isn't the inappropriate pride to keep your eyes shut. And go and find and recognize the goodness and the weaknesses of all countries. And whether it be a design of an automobile, clothes, food products, or just other people's behaviors and personality. And you have access to all of this with all your newspapers and magazines and TVs and wonderful documentaries. Europe has beautiful documentaries on TV. Beautiful. We don't have this in America. They won't show these in America. It's shocking. They will not show good documentaries in America. But you have them. But you have them every day. You don't even realize how wonderful, how fortunate you are. And to see the beauty of the strength and the weaknesses, and have the courage to see the weaknesses and draw in and pull in their strength. Pull in where they're better than you. Pull in where they're kinder than you. Pull in where they're smarter than you. And keep away the illness that they have of mind, of ignorance, and superstition. And then the German gets richer and just doesn't stay German. The smart one gets the goodness, looks for the cream of the cake. And then one becomes worldwide. And then one's neurons firing inside the head starts to fire a little bit differently. Or the frequency has been altered, the pitch has been changed. There's more expansion, more thought. You could say an astronaut's view is being established in that German mind. And all of a sudden, you're no longer German, but a human being living on a very big but small planet that is rotating through space. For you see, the astronaut, once they really leave and let go and understand what the Berlin Walls are really for, and you have an astronaut's view, and you get so high up that Germany somehow just blends into all the other lands. It's really just one continent. And pretty soon, it's just really just one planet. And then the real journey takes place. Then the real journey takes place. And then one looks up and really sees spaciousness. What real spaciousness is. Moons and stars, billions of miles of light years away. That is spaciousness. For the mind has become educated, has matured. The mind has become more than what it was bred, what it was taught. The mind has become smarter than what the teachers had taught them. For that person's mind and heart reached its ceiling, touched its ceiling, and had the courage to go beyond what is German, what is American Indian, what is French, what is Russian, what is Jewish, and what is Gypsy. And pretty soon, all we are is just white and brown, yellow and red, black and blue, orange, pink, and purple. That's all we are. Make a decision. But your mind needs the facts. You need to acquire the data and count the minutes when you were one with your lover, one with yourself, one with a project, one with your child, one with a tree, one with water, one with running, one with laughing. And add up the minutes when you were not one. You were separate, and time and space, subject and object, became very, very potent and real. To see what you are up against, to see what your life and how it has been walking itself out. Consciously, most people are not aware of this, but subconsciously, your mind is. Subconsciously, your heart is. So you have to draw and wake up what is in the inner depths of your heart and mind and educate your conscious mind. And then, when there's enough understood, and even though the reality points against you, the Berlin walls are really just too far, too great, and then you use what is in the human being that's not in a tree, that's not in a spider, that's not in a cloud, that's not in water, that's not in the leaf, that's not in the wind, that is not in the sun or the moon, that is not in a light bulb, that's not in a stick of gum, that's not in your toothbrush, but only in a human being, a wish to be more than what you can perceive yourself, than what you understand yourself to be. And then when one becomes wise with oneself, or how can you change when you're looking at this balance scale and it's so offset, it is so off balance, it is so off balance. And then one very quietly can say to oneself, now I have truly seen what I have seen through my eyes. Not just the eyes taught from my parents, and not just the eyes taught from my grandparents, and not just the eyes taught from my friends, and not just the eyes taught from my teachers in school, and not just the eyes taught from advertisement, and not just the eyes taught from ink and words in a book. For I have truly seen as far as I can see, and I know what I can see through my eyes. But in my heart I know that there is more to see. And this I ask life, teach me to see through your eyes. For I have seen the extent of what I can see through my eyes, and that is all. I have hit my ceiling. And so I ask to teach me to see through your eyes. It is only then the German, the Russian, the Mongolian, it is only then the Spanish and the Indians, you could say turning in oneself into smoke, becoming somewhat like a cloud, miraculously somehow getting lighter and lighter and lighter. No longer the heavy thoughts that are somehow made out of lead and stone and brick. No longer the heavy feelings of hurt and disappointment. But somehow the lightness is raising me up higher and higher. With the boundaries of Germany, no more. The boundaries of a continent, no more. And the boundaries of a planet, no more. For you see, that is what really takes place when one passes away. You have to do it anyway. And yet, and yet, and yet, and yet, and yet, it's in your hands. And yet, it's in your hands. So close to your face, so close to your heart, so close to your shoulders, so close to the person next to you. To touch, to shake a hand, to reach out. For once the astronaut's view is in place, and if you could reach and somehow stretch your hand into outer space without it freezing, you would sense it's so vast. It's so quiet. It's so much. And there they are, your hands at your side. So vast, so quiet. And yet they speak so loud, and yet they're so quiet. And sometimes we can do that with our eyes, and sometimes we can feel it in our walk. And sometimes we can hear it in our voice. And sometimes we can see it in an act. The hands is a mediator between the heart and the mind. So quiet. And yet it can pull the trigger of a gun and kill. And yet it can build, and yet it can destroy. And yet it can cut hair. And yet it can serve a bowl of cereal. So know your hands. And the astronaut comes to you. And the spirit comes to you. I gotta be on time for the coffee. We got 23 minutes. Next question. Yeah, to talk about boredom. Yeah. You know, I play with it all the time, you know, where I say something, I'll say it's boring, and there was this incident. I was having dinner at this house with this family, and they had a daughter and a son, and I think the daughter was 9, 10 years old, and the son was 12. You know how young kids are, bubbly, and you know, and the father's real serious, and the mother's real serious, and I'm serious sometimes too, you know, and you know how kids are, you know, and the parents want them to behave, and you know, and don't embarrass us, and you know, and this and all that, and there we're, you know, having dinner, and conversation is going, and you know, it's going, and you know, every now and then there's a dead spot. And there was a dead spot, you know. And there, you know, in a meeting, I don't know what to say, you know. And you know, you could feel, you know, there's a little uncomfortableness going on with the adults, you know. And then all of a sudden, the little girl says, "It's getting boring." And it was. I like that, you know. So yeah. You know, when to study boredom, it's very difficult as an adult to study it because then again you're dealing with the education of the Western system, and you're taught from a very early age subject object, you know, and so that creates separation, and with there's separation, all of a sudden, what are you going to do with this space and time, and you got to fill it. And then when the Western mind tries to fill it, you know, we try to fill it with toys and entertainment and housework and jobs and talking and anything to fill the time and the space, you know, because this time and space has been created, which is an illusion, but it, for the Western mind, it works. It does work. We make it work for ourselves. And so when a person, after so many years, has developed some idea of subject and object, subjective and objective, it wants to fill it when it's not filled, when the time is not filled. And one, you could say a word or a phrase or something was invented along the way to help fill this time and space, to maybe so you could give you incentive or to activate your imagination to fill this time and space, and that was boredom. A word called boredom came up. And it's understandable under the circumstances. And because I'm not busy filling the space, you know, I gotta do something. I just can't sit here. I just can't, you know. And if you take a look go and look at the early ones, the young ones, the real young ones, there's no such thing in their eyes. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. It does not exist. I have come across human beings that are even in Berlin, airports, train stations, all throughout Europe. I've seen them in America, and I've seen them in India. I've seen them in Srinagar. I've seen them everywhere, where adults, they don't have boredom in their eyes. It doesn't exist, for there's nothing but life. There's nothing to fill. Just to do if you wish, to do if you must. Life is miraculous every moment. But most have bought this system. They have taken it in ignorantly and not been warned about it, what it is really. And when your friends do it and you're growing up, you know, and you always want to be like your friends and do what your friends are doing and be one of the crowd, you start to mimic and take in the fad. And boredom is in the nature of it. And after 10, 20 years of this, it has woven itself into your lives. It is part of complacency. It has woven itself into the conditioning. So it's invisible to see, to perceive, to uptake the roots. And as long as you have this philosophy inside you, don't even think of walking down the spiritual path. Don't even think about it. Uproot. Pull that root out first. Pull it out. Because in reality, it does not exist. And if most of you have this root inside, what you got to do is to catch it. To pull the root out, you got to catch it. And it has to pull out and to transform any neuroses inside. You have to let it, keep it up so it can breathe oxygen. And so you can look at it with your conscious mind long enough that it will dissolve. So you got to catch yourself in the act, in in that time and space when you start to walk into boredom. Yeah. Because there's a mechanism in there. There is that mechanism, even though it's a fine razor's edge. There's a switch. And you're at the mercy of this. It's your life. In some sense, you could say, take control of it. But in essence, it's to really understand it. Since I'm an Indian, we'll take an early break. Good. Yeah. Good. Good. 3 words. Good. 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 What was the other one? Speaking. My memory. You know how memories are. And once you pass 50, and I know that most of you are, we all have gotten older, and so I got to give you some lessons on incontinence. You will thank me one day. Hey, only for men. Oh, you kidding? It is for both. And they have these wonderful diapers that you can't even tell either. Do you know diapers? Yeah. You know that? Oh, you have diapers already. Oh. Imagine we all come in here with our wheelchairs and our tubes. Oh, God, get me out of here quick,
Everybody still wants to sit in the first line and imagine the run.
Yeah. What would you like to talk about? Give me some good questions, so we can all chew on it, This morning, at 10 o'clock this morning, I was in this middle school, primary school, on the edge of Berlin, one of the little communities in Berlin, but way out there. And this school, they have a zoo. They have all kinds. You have horses and donkeys and rabbits and chickens. It's a wonderful school, and they have over 800 students at this school. And this morning I went there, and they brought 2 classes together, and the ages are from like 10 to 13. And I got to stand in front and answer the questions. That's all it was for, answer the questions. And when you're young, how the questions are so simple, so simple, so simple. and not meshed with hurt and pain and disappointment and this and that. It's so simple. It was just so wonderful. It was just so refreshing. And so questions, even there were personal questions just popping out and writing and laughing at it, and it was wonderful. It was just so nice. So, either that or I get out the incontinent bags, So what do you want? The bags or start throwing out questions?
More about what helplessness, the feeling of helplessness is doing with us. What is happening in our life if we feel as a child or as a grown-up helpless?
Yeah.
Is this leading also to aggression and
I think I have the gist of your question, but if I don't answer it, let me know. The feeling of helplessness is so relative. It's difficult. Helplessness is relative according to one's perceptions, one's education system, where they're born. Helpless can be, let's say, pointed towards more emotional, or it's more mental, or who knows, something of a dream or whatever. So the word helplessness needs to be well defined. A lot needs to be understood, and that's the beauty of therapy, because one can sit under therapy, and if the therapist is wise enough, and I don't know if a lot of therapists do this, or they're even taught to do this, but everybody that comes into your office, whether it is a physician or a psychiatrist or a counselor, you have to know that this person who has come in has come from another planet. Literally come from another planet. And your job is to know that. And you have to find out, even though they may use the same words, you got to find out what is the real meaning behind it. The real meaning. And keep digging and digging and digging and digging until you have a very good description of what planet and how they operate and how they think. Because the laws of gravity, the laws of biology, the laws of the mental body and the emotional body are going to be very different in another planet versus the planet you came from. And that's what takes time, to pull it out and pull it out and pull it out, and until you have your own dictionary, your own encyclopedia that you're able to help them with it. And here's something else. Most people that come in with a specific question is really not their real question. Most people. They're really coming in for something else. But we have to play it out and use that as a means to find out what is it that they're really coming in for. And that's a job of the therapist. And not just pay attention to it, to their initial question. Because there's so much behind all of this. There's so much history, so much, and many, many layers. And not just from a linear point of view, it's multidimensional point of view, these layers. So the therapist has to be very multidimensional. Linear when you need to be, and multidimensional when you have to be. Question? Yes?
Could you tell us something about all the way how the diseases,
Our
diseases,
diseases?
illness,
Diseases.
break out, and
How do diseases break out?
yes, and how we can manage with
to keep ourselves healthy and
to heal them by
to heal them by ourselves
ourselves.
too. Okay, so your question is, how do we get diseases?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me give you something that has happened in my life. And this took place in my 30s. And this was a time when I was awake in my dreams. I started to wake up in my dreams. And then I started to travel in my dreams. It changed naturally my whole view of what reality is. And it just wasn't the traveling in the dreams. The most profound things was the various reality of the light within the dream state. Because there are dreams that have just dream light, senseless dreams, nonsense. And as the light becomes more and more real, the dream becomes more and more real. That's the indication that it's something that is more real, because it's the light. And then when it comes to the light itself, there's the light of the spirit, and then there's the light of a very typical dream state. The light of the spirit is the light of uncaused light. And the light of dream state has various functions, because we go through various stages of dreaming. Anywhere from nonsense dreams where the mind is trying to reorganize from the chaos point of view of what we've seen and integrate it throughout the day. And then there's the dreams that have, let's say, prophecy in it, or dreams that are of the past, or dreams that, things that have occurred, or things that are about to occur in our lives. And as the light gets more real, you could say that one becomes more and more away from earth, away from earth. And it is kind of like you become more and more, not just immune, because the light is stronger. Because as the light gets stronger and stronger, you go from more, you get away from the physical, and you become more and more mental, and then you start to become more and more spiritual. Well, there's this fine line. There's kind of like a twilight zone, a midpoint, where you're still very biological, still of earth, and so all the dream light and everything that occurs in the dream is more of this earth. And if you go down a little bit deeper, that is more, let's say that is not human anymore, and you go more into the microcosm of life, and that's more of molecule, more of bacteria. I found myself in this doorway where it was like a hole in my heart. There was like this huge hole. And there were all these microbes, all these things coming in. And it was actually from the woman that my girlfriend next door, sleeping next to me. And I could see, and I was watching this exchange between us going on. That what was coming from my heart and from my mind, it was like pictures, it was things, it was books and desk, and you could see that love, like you could see the flowing of love flowing through, and then just nonsense, and she's sending it back and forth. And she's sleeping, she's asleep. And I thought, my God, I mean, life is really strange how we exchange, this information and these things. And then all of a sudden, I knew that since this was my first time there, that it's just not to see this, but I feel like appropriate fear. And this appropriate fear puts one on guard, to beware, watch out, beware, watch out. And I started to, look around, And I saw this thing coming from another direction, and it was somewhat like a scorpion, somewhat but worse. Never seen anything like this, but it was like a scorpion. And I had watched all these things come into my heart. And it's natural that we exchange. It's just so natural that we exchange feelings and thoughts and ideas. And so I would let all these things go, because we've been doing that since the dawn of time, exchanging information, exchanging feelings, exchanging bacteria, exchanging viruses, etc., etc. But when I saw this thing, there was something in me that says, but then I said, hey, it's things come and go, let it go. And it's coming. And then when it got right there, I says, don't let this thing in. And I went for it, and I grabbed it, and I just started to pull and pull and pull and pull and pull. So it wouldn't come in. And I thought, I wonder what this thing would have done if it would have gone in. I wonder, on a different level. It is very much the same thing as someone having a virus, a cold, here in this room. And your feelings inside, if you are sensitive enough and aware enough, where you can sense your intuition is telling you, hey, don't go near that person, The same thing, but I want to be nice. I want to be real nice. So I go up, and the person, reaches out to touch their hand, and be nice, but don't do it, don't do it. But I want to be nice. Don't do it, don't do it. How are you? Fine. The exchange has taken place. And guess what? Yeah. And here comes a friend with here's an incident. This friend, good friends for many years, but they're young. And this one friend came over, and she was ill, kind of ill. But they've known each other for years, and go ahead and come on in and lie down. And she says, I'm so tired, and I'm just so tired, Oh, let's lie down, okay, and okay, so they lie down, they're good friends, nothing sexual. It's just that they're just going to lie down together, and she sees that she's, what's, I don't know, just, gotta, I've been scratching for weeks, okay, and, and she's lying there only for about an hour, and then she, takes off and goes home, and, and then 2 weeks later, she is, scabies. And she kind of had a feeling, don't let her come in my home, not this time. But nice. Right? Yeah. You would be surprised how so many illnesses is because we are so nice. This happened in Paris. This was after one of the speeches, and we all went for a break. I was just just standing there, and I forgot if there's someone talking to me or not. But I saw this thing about so high, and it was kind of like this big, and it was I could see through it. But it was like bathroom glass, wavy. And it was just wavy and wavy. And I was watching this thing, and this thing is coming towards me. And I'm watching this thing, and this thing, I can see through it, but it was, distorted. And I said, what is this? I never seen anything like this. And here this thing is coming and coming. And I went, this thing is coming for me. And I said, wow, this got a present for, I love presents, you know. And this thing is coming and coming. And I'm just standing there, just watching this thing. And pretty soon it starts to come into my body. And I could just feel the zzz, you know, it has a certain frequency, a certain vibration, zzz, and it's coming in. And then I realize, oh God, it's a virus. And it's in. Then I know, uh-oh. Wow. But guess what? Being that I observed it on a different dimension, on a different level, I thought, wow, this is a gift. Now is to communicate with it. I'm going to go through the fever, and that's a time you communicate with it. That's a time you relate with it. That's a time you befriend it. And to hold the focus, hold the focus, hold the focus. And let it do its job. It's got a job to do, people. Illnesses, they have a job to do. Illnesses, you could say these viruses and bacteria have been around the planet for millions and millions of years. They just didn't exist when you were born. They just didn't exist when human beings came on. They've been around for billions. They're billions of years old. They have a job to do. Some are nasty, real nasty. Some kill. Some you survive. And some diseases stay for a long time. And there's all kinds of reasons why. Ill health, you know, not eating right, not the right medicine, you know.
And how to find out if it's better to embrace it or to fight
It is not to embrace it. No, it is not embracing it. See, once it was in, there's nothing I can do but to walk it out, walk with it, but to take advantage of it and walk with it. And not just cry, complain, or moan. Now let's go for a real roller coaster ride. And it's going to be a roller coaster ride. It's going to be a very hot ride. Maybe it'll be a dangerous ride, but if you're going to go for the ride, ride well. If you have to pass away, then you pass away well. If you have to be hungry, you learn to be hungry well. If you're going to have to cry, you cry well. If you're going to have to work, you work well. If you're going to go for a walk, you walk well. If you have to make love, you better make love well. If you're going to shake hand, you shake a hand well. And don't say, oh, I am more evolved than you. I am smarter than you. Well, let's see how much of a fever you can take. And let's see how sane you stay. And let's see if your body is strong enough to withstand it. It is not to hate in this world. For hate will darken your thoughts, darken your life, and darken your future. But it is to have appropriate fear when it is necessary, and to respect. It is to respect. And to kill when you need to kill. And whether it be a cancer, or an enemy, or a spider that is poisonous, or someone trying to harm you, you have to know when to do it. It is of this world. And to have the courage and the clarity when to act and when not to.
What was this scorpion or this thing you did?
What was this scorpion? I don't know. I don't know. I do not know. And I have no interest in... it was just nasty. It was nasty. Yeah. Yeah. Again, I saw, that I had a naivety. I saw that I also had a nice guy inside. And just let things happen. No, we got to make decisions. We got to learn when to make decisions. When to be nice and when not to be nice. And our nervous system and our brain has the capacity to sense all these various levels and keep it, you could say, on a human social level. Even though maybe we will never see, maybe it cannot be taught for people to see these viruses on their level, on their dimension, or to see how that works, but to keep it on a social level and be of common sense.
Drug experiences, how real are they and how deep do they go?
Drug experiences, how real are they and how deep do they go? I've only taken LSD, I tried speed, marijuana, beer, and beer, and beer. Whiskey, vodka, I don't like that stuff. And beer, and beer, and beer. Beer's the best. You can tell? Why? Because beer has hops in it, and the hops helps to relax the muscles. It relaxes the muscles pretty well. It can. I mean, I don't drink much, but this is when I was young. I drank a lot. I was probably, I guess you could say I was alcoholic, and all my friends were. I think most of us were. When you're young, you just drink every time. And LSD, you get to see things, and it opens up worlds that are outside the perception of the typical human perception. And it can be a wonderful experience. And providing that you use it to contemplate and to study and not use it as a joy ride. A lot of people use it as a joy ride, or they use it to entertain themselves. And it's not too wise to do that. And when you take a heavy drug that really alters the mind, you should wait 6 months to a year to 2 years before you take another drug like it. The problem, what happens is that because of boredom and spaciousness and time, and people are always trying to fill this emptiness with entertainment and LSD and alcohol and all these other drugs, I find them very entertaining, actually. They fill these gaps, these spaces. And as a result, they go through their high and they get fulfilled with massive entertainment, massive doses, high doses of entertainment of the senses. And then when this high dose subsides and goes away, man, you're low. You're very low of entertainment. And what do you seek? More entertainment. Another dose, another dose, another dose. And the repercussion and the effects of this, of not letting your mind, brain, nervous system, organs, skin digest it, integrate it, digest it, the mind starts to split into other various sub-personalities. And then people start to have problems. Because the mind cannot, it's too much. It's not designed for it. You've overloaded it. And then you overload it again, overload it again, overload it again. And pretty soon, split, Berlin Wall, another Berlin Wall, another Berlin Wall. And these people don't even know it. And in time, they have problems. Yeah. You need to allow your mind to integrate fully with this stuff. And there are, I can imagine, a lot of sensations, things that you can see and feel that you could say they have a sense of their own reality in its own dimension. And yet, you could see that there's a relationship to the dimension of the normal existence. So there can be some good correlation and it can help you understand things differently. I don't recommend them. I don't recommend them because it's not a high that can sustain you. It can't. These highs cannot sustain you. They cannot sustain you. These highs are nothing more than going into a cave with a nice torch that has good batteries and a good light bulb. For all it is, these highs is nothing more than going in a very, very dark cave and having this torch, and wherever the torch is, you see. And that's the high. Because it's so intense. The intensity is so much by looking at it. And then you're looking at this and looking at that and looking at this and looking at that. And it's burning down into your brain. It's imprinting your brain because the intensity is so strong. It's like putting a bright light into your eyes and the impact of that is intense on that brain. You realize, have you ever touched the brain itself? It's very tender. Trust me, doesn't feel like bone. It doesn't feel like rock. And it doesn't feel like the bottom of your shoes. Soft. It's soft. It's soft. It's soft. Have you ever wondered why we're encased with this skull? We only have, you could say, these very tiny little entrances to let the light in. Just very, very small. Has to be. It would fry the brain. And that's what happens when people take these drugs. Torch in a dark cave. And then the brain's got to integrate it, people. Who wants to be in a dark cave with a torch? Batteries run off. They die. Do you know that? Batteries die after a while. I want to be on top of the cave and see all of it. That's the best light. You don't even have to invent a torch. You don't even have to buy batteries. Save some money. The biggest high of all is to see what this light, this given light from the sun, to see that it is a light that is not a natural light. This light is a light of cause and effect. This is not a real light or sun. This is not a real light. It's an artificial light. The sun, you can say, is a natural light, but it's not really a natural light, people. It's a light of cause and effect, teaching us everything cause and effect. It gives us the sense to see the beauty of a valley, of mountains, of people walking, to see your children, to wash dishes, and to sweep floors, and to get on your knees and find that money. Where is it? Where did I drop it? But it's all going to be of cause and effect. People don't find peace on this earth because it is not designed really for peace. We can have peace between two nations, two armies, but it'll last only so long because we get hungry, we get famine, things go wrong, new generations come, people get angry, cause and effect, cause and effect, and the sun promotes it, cause and effect. And during the day, it cooks everything that is under the sun. Everything gets cooked. We are nothing but Mexican jumping beans under this sun. But if you really want to find peace, and you want to really find the true nature of light, then you have to find and seek the light of on-cause light. A light where there's no causes and no effects. A light that just is. A light that is inside all creatures. No wonder people can't find it in their meditation, and they close their eyes and they dig down deep into their hearts, deep down into their minds, deep down into their feelings. Because they cannot recognize the light of on-cause. They're looking for a cause, they're looking for a profit. They're looking for a reward. They're looking for satisfaction. They're looking for a reward. They're looking for an effect. And yet, paradoxically, where were you when my pain was so strong and I called all to you? Where were you? Where were you when I was lost? When I prayed hard and I got no answer, where were you? Where were you when I really wanted that and I never got it? Where were you? Who is asking? Who speaks? And when the acid and the alkaline has finally been reduced to a very fine balance, one no longer seeks profit, one no longer seeks causes or effects, one no longer seeks rewards. And one realizes it's a round planet. And no matter what country I laid my feet on, it's a round planet. You haven't gone anywhere. It's the same planet. A planet traveling 486,000 miles an hour through space. Where are you headed to? Into what direction? This is what you must ask yourself. Don't you want to know where you're going? When you get in a car, don't you want to know? Unless it's just for a ride. It is your right as a human being to ask, who has their foot on the gas pedal that is projecting this planet 486,000 miles an hour? Who has their foot on the gas pedal? Exercise this right. Do not leave it up to the priests or the astronomers. Do not leave it up to the scientists. Do not leave it up to ignorance. Do not leave it up to complacency. Ask. Next question. Come on. I'll bring out the bags, the incontinence bags. Yes.
To forgive, what does it mean? Can I do it by myself?
To forgive, what does it mean? Can I do it by myself? That is a very difficult thing to do for adults. Very difficult for adults. Extremely difficult for adults. And usually, for adults, it's usually under the auspiciousness of some form of give and take. Usually. For a child, no problem. Either they do or they don't. And when they don't, you know it. But when they do, you know it. But for an adult, let me see here. Well, if I do, will I get, let me see here. You didn't forgive me for this and this and this and this and that. Why should I forgive you for this and this and this and that? Now, if I forgive you, I need this and I want that, and then maybe I will forgive you. But you got to write it down. Write it down in contract. I want it on written paper. And I have a good lawyer. So, bad news for the adults, good news for the kids. So when an adult says, I forgive you, oh, yeah, okay. With stipulations. With stipulations, usually. But I've come across adults that have forgiven. But here's the bad news. Usually they are grandmas and grandpas. They don't have to prove anything, they don't have to sell you anything, they don't have to get your love or, they don't, Yeah, they've done it, seen it, heard it. Hey, it's okay. Yeah. But for you, that's the way it is. Yeah. Yeah. So you gotta because people to forgive, there is no negotiation. 9. No negotiation. I know it's handy. I know it's real handy. Next question. So, you want me to tell you what you want me to say? Oh, adults? Okay, I'll tell you what people want me to say. Oh, yes, just forgive, and then everything is taken care of. And when you're young, in your 20s and 30s, and you're hurt and you're disappointment, just say, I forgive you, and it's done.